I tell you what's going to happen. Revenues are going north because we won't be saying no, we'll be saying yes. So I created this kill dumb rules thing. And in a way, it's a huge bucket of crap up there called rules that do nothing but piss people off. And so I created this program called Killing Dumb Rules. I'd show up in the workplace with a white t-shirt with dumb rules in red and a big black X through there. Here's the president of the company walking through. We had dumb rules committees. We had dumb rules competitions. We had dumb rules celebrations. So the whole idea was to make fun of this notion and laugh at ourselves and fix it. And of course, frontline people loved it because all we had to do is ask them what the dumbest 3 rules are in customer service, for example, and they would be out with it right away. And of course, they've been telling us for years. It's just that as leaders, we didn't listen.
This is the Entrepreneurs United podcast with your hosts, John St. Pierre and Rich Hoffman.
Roy, when I hear be different or dead, I immediately want to stop and go, tell me more. What on earth do you mean? And why does someone need to be different or dead?
It's all about differentiation. And my experience is that if you can't differentiate yourself, then the outcome is going to be painful and it's going to be filled with agony. Okay. And the reality is that the world today really doesn't do a very good job differentiating itself. Like, just look around. You got organizations using words like we're better, we're best, we're number one, we're the market leader. All that, I call that claptrap. Those expressions mean nothing to customers, absolutely nothing. And so I've had to create my own solution to that dilemma, and I've called it the only statement, okay, which means we're not good, we're not better, we're the only ones who do what we do. And so I spent a lot of my time trying to help entrepreneurs understand that if you're not the only one that does what you do, stop spending money, right? You got to figure that out, because the ultimate consequence of not being different is that you're dead. That's just my way of saying you don't have a very rewarding future ahead of you if you can't get that right. And for all you entrepreneurs out there with these great ideas, good for you, but take a step back and ask yourself the question, all right, what are you the only ones at incorporating that new idea? And I find that guidance is woefully short. People are out there believing that technology is going to solve their entrepreneurial problem and it's going to open up all of this wealth for them. And it's bull. It just doesn't happen. Everybody's using the same technology. Everybody's following the same advice, except mine. Everybody's reading the same textbooks, right? And yet they expect a different outcome, right? There's only one way to cut through that, and it's you have to be different, and there's a way to do it, because I figured it out and it got me $1 billion. That's the proof point.
Roy, when did you come to realize that you needed to be different? And what was that journey of change for you to become different?
Yeah, so I think I've grown up with it in my veins, to be honest with you, because I've always been a contrarian. I've always been a disruptor. And I think I got it from my mom, who was one of 12 kids in Gaspé, Quebec, actually, where she was born. And I think what I got from her was the need to survive and fight. And the way you do that is to get noticed in a way people care about. And that was all about, upon reflection, the whole, I think, genesis of this be different mantra that I have. I didn't call it, but on reflection, that's what it is. And so I basically grew up asking myself the question, how can I do this differently? Looking at what other people are doing and saying, what if I went 180 degrees out of phase with this, or 90 degrees? What are the implications? And so I applied it to my career. I applied it to a business that I was asked to lead in the internet space, and upon reflection, got us a lot of revenue. And hey, listen, guys, I apply it to my personal life. I have 4 grandchildren. I am the be different papa. Everything I do, okay, is oriented towards lighting them up and doing something that's on the edge or blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I get in trouble for that, but leaving them with an experience that they only get from this papa. And so I just think I've got it in my veins, and it exudes itself and manifests itself in various ways at various times.
Roy, today you're an author. You have your own consulting practice, I would say. Is that correct?
Yeah, I fuss around with it.
Okay. Awesome. And why?
I want to pay it forward. As I said earlier, the whole notion of differentiation in the world today is not being done very well. And I've been able to weave my way and strategically meander my way through the challenges around differentiation successfully. And so I like to deal with small businesses and entrepreneurs and help them because I figured it out. I've got a strategic game planning process that I created for myself that works, that you can do in 48 hours. And so I work with small businesses to help them, either if they're just starting, declare an only position and use that as a plan for their business, or if they're an existing business and they want to step up their performance, we apply the same kind of moves that I made to their reality and help them out. And so at the end of the day, if we are able to change the conversation, right, away from copying what I call gargling Google, which is way too much of that stuff going on, and getting people concerned about creating new ideas in a way that's different than other people and satisfies the cravings and desires of people that they serve, then it's been a good day. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. When I hear I've figured it out and I got a simple 48-hour strategic business planning process that can actually put it all together for you, I'm like, whoa, okay, stop, hold on. What is that exactly? How does one get access to that? Where does someone listening to this go, okay, tell me more. Like, how do we get some of that?
So let me deal with the access piece first. Okay, I have a website and you'll ask me later anyways, but it's bedifferentorbedead.com. If you go on to that, I've been writing about this stuff since 2009 when I wrote my first book called Be Different or Be Dead, Your Business Survival Guide. So if you go into the blog and just search up strategic game plan, you're going to get more content than you want. So if people are interested in it, go to the blog, get the content, but in a word, okay? So why did I have to create this? I had to create it because, look, at traditional planning techniques are flawed, in my opinion, okay? They take too long and they're too expensive. And quite frankly, leadership avoids and escapes accountability. Just think of the strategic planning sessions you've sat through where they've trotted out subject matter experts on this and sub SMEs on that. Leaders in the room sit there and they look at presentations and they end up agreeing with somebody else's view as opposed to taking ownership as a leader and creating it themselves. Okay. So I said, all right, what we need to do is we need to make it fast. We need to make it fun. We need to build teamwork, and it needs to be relatively inexpensive. And so I created this process that I called strategic game planning, which is basically you can create a plan by answering 3 questions. And that's what I take people through, right? First question, how big do you want to be? This is a question about growth, top line revenue. It's not about net income because I can play that game and you can play that game forever in terms of manipulating numbers. But this is top line revenue. Why? Top line, because that's a representation of how the market feels about the value you're delivering. If your top line is going north, then it's a pretty good indication that you're doing something right. And so basically what we do is I get a leadership team in a room and say, all right, first thing we're going to do is declare how big do you want to be in 24 months. This is not a 5-year planning process because the 4th year never shows up, guys. We all know that. We all know the hockey stick mentality. If you don't get it done today, you always got year 4. The problem is nothing happens, right? So it's a 24-month plan. It's 24 periods of 30 days. Why do I talk this way? It's because I want people to execute and learn as they execute, because we don't have this divine ability to predict outcomes in an imperfect stochastic world. Doesn't happen. And yet all the traditional planning models and all the formulas actually imply that we can. You can't, right? So the first thing is we declare, how big do you want to be? If you're at $1 million today, my question is, where do you want to be in 24 months, guys? Do you want to be at 2 million? Do you want to be at 5 million? Do you want to be at 25 million? Why do I start out with the numbers? Because the numbers drive the character and the risk profile of the strategy. Traditional planning has got it all wrong. They create a strategy and then they look at the economic outcome. And typically they don't like what they see and they change the assumptions and they don't change the strategy. And so now they've got different numbers. So I say, you can't do that. So bang, how big do you want to be? That's a fun exercise. Because if you think you have it figured out, the number isn't big enough. That's the other part of this for me, is that it's a driver of creativity and innovation. It's a driver of, I don't know, Roy. And I say, good, then it's the right number. Okay, because if you don't know, then you're forced to innovate. You can't get the results by Googling what somebody else did. Okay. And so part of this for me is to force people out of this gargling Google mentality of seeing what other people do and copying them, and to figure it out on their own. So that's question number one. That's a fun one. Okay. The second one is, okay, who do you want to serve? That says, where are you going to get the money? This is all about identifying groups of customers, okay, that have the latent potential to deliver the how big. And that's a fun one, because we take a deep dive once we think we've got it right. I take a deep dive in these customer segments and try to identify what they crave, not what they need, what they crave, what they lust for, what they desire. Okay, in the sort of the twilight of the evening, what do they actually really want? And of course, I do that because we're going to end up marketing into cravings. Why? Because they're price insensitive and there's nobody else in the space.
Yep.
So figure out the customer groups, figure out what they crave. The third piece basically gets back to the differentiation piece. And that is the question, how are you going to compete and win? That's all about creating uniqueness in a way people care about, and your only statement. So we actually create a business plan, okay, that's built to execute. That's why I call it a game plan, around how big do you want to be, who do you want to serve, and how are you going to compete and win and create your only. Then you got, literally, your plan is like 5 lines long.
Yeah.
And it's just about right, guys. That's the point. It's just about right. It's notionally right. It's like heading west, in my view, is an excellent strategy. All right. Because you have no idea whether you're going to end up in Vancouver or Seattle. So why are you spending all this time up front trying to figure that out? Just get doing some stuff and learning as you go. That plan for me was amazing because it kept it alive. It was always a draft. It gave us permission, okay, to learn from execution and tweak the plan as we went. We had no idea that it was going to be $1 billion. All we knew was, deep down, the growth potential was huge. And the only way for us to realize it was to get the hell out of our heads, get into our hearts, and start doing stuff. And so the planning process I created was really built around that notion of just getting out there and doing it, learn from it. Get into this do loop that says plan, execute, learn, and adjust. Plan, execute, learn, and adjust. So that's what the process is. And it's amazing because I can get a small business client in a room. He or she will give me 48 hours. Okay. And we actually create a plan and they go, oh my God, never would have believed that that investment of 48 hours would pay off the way it did. And they love doing it.
Roy, I want to recap what I heard, and I apologize. My hand is slower than my ears, and I was not able to capture it all. You have so many nuggets in here. You've got question one is, how big do you want to be? You ask that because it represents how the market feels about the value that you're bringing to it. And you break up your game plan in 24 periods of 30 days, and you feel the number determines the character and risk profile of the strategy. When I go to number 2, it's who do you want to serve, and identify what they crave, not what they need, because even if you identified what they needed, they may not actually want it, and they're not going to buy it if they don't want it. And I love what I have as a quote is, if you identify what they crave, they're price insensitive. I totally missed number 3 because I was taking notes on number 2 still. What was the number 3 question? And can you share a few words on that again, please?
Yeah. The third question is, how do you intend to compete and win? Okay. For those customer segments that you've defined, okay, the question now becomes, because there's probably some degree of competition in there, how are you going to compete in those segments and win? And that's where we create your only statement. Because the answer to the question is, we're going to compete and win, not by being the best, not by being better, but we're going to compete and win in those customer segments by being the only one that blank. Okay. Let me give you an example of a recent engagement that I had with this company in Eastern Canada that were actually in the boat. They thought they were in the boat selling business. Okay, so they distributed boats to boat dealers. The reason that they reached out is they weren't happy with the level of growth they were getting. So I took them through this process. And we finally came to the place where we had to create their only statement. And I said to them, sorry, this is all about figuring out how you are unique in the way your target customers care about. That's what this is all about. This is not about what you think you are. And that's part of the problem out there. We got narcissism reigning supreme in the world these days about people deciding what makes them great. And the problem is it doesn't resonate with customers. And so they said to me, I'm not so sure that anything is, Roy. I'm not so sure. We sell boats, right? I mean, a boat's a boat. And I said, yeah, right. People, the dealers expect the boats to float. Yep, that's right. And when they do float, it doesn't really impress them because they expect the boats to float. So I said, let's play with this a little while. So let's talk about what the boat dealers really want, what they really desire, what keeps them awake at night. Of course, the answer to that question isn't we need floating boats. It wasn't we need boats with electronics that actually live up to expectations. What they discovered was the boat dealers, what kept them awake at night is their businesses were not growing. Okay. And so I said, fine, let's figure out a way to play into that with an anchor, bad choice of words, as a boat. And so we came up with this only statement, which just rocks. Okay. It says Marine Co. is the only complete service partner committed to delivering solutions to grow a boat dealer's business. They're not in the business of selling boats. They're in the business of creating solutions to help the dealers grow their business. Now, of course, they're going to apply the boat as part of the solution. But the point is, the value proposition is not about boats. And so this is a really good example of answering the how are you going to compete and win question by basically reframing their business. Another example I had, guys, just finished an exercise with a lawn and garden company who thought that they were in the business of cutting lawns. We actually decided that they're not. They're in the property development business. And when they realize property development, they go, oh my God, we have so many relationships here with people that paint houses, with people that do all sorts of other things that we could draw in and create value packages around. And we're the only ones that do that. And so that question is a critical one. Okay, but it's targeted. It's targeted at the who do you want to serve. It is not a statement about the market. A lot of people will say, here's target markets. And then they go about creating a differential plan that speaks more broadly than that, speaks to the market. And that's not what it is. Everything's linked. How big drives who you're going to serve, drives how you're going to compete and win. It's really tight. It has to be tight. If it's not, if it gets loosey-goosey, execution suffers and you don't achieve nothing. So it's got to be.
Thank you for the examples of the only statements, the two that you gave us. What I gathered from that is you had said it's a value proposition. And what I wrote down is it's really a value proposition that solves a problem that they're having. So if they're not perceiving a problem they're having, or you said, what are they staying awake at night thinking about? And how can you be a solution to that? And that is what they crave. That is what the business needs to be geared around and play into. How am I capturing that?
Very well. I would add only the notion, because I say you end up falling into this universal selling proposition rhetoric that's out there by academia, which quite frankly, and I'll be direct, is useless as far as I'm concerned, okay? Because it speaks to what you think you are. It speaks to what you think you're going to solve. And the really critical issue for me here is whatever solution, Rich, you come up with, it's got to be unique. You've got to be the only one doing it. Otherwise, you've missed the point. Okay, so it's a unique value proposition that addresses what people care about. And when somebody says, what do you mean by that? It's literally, you're the only ones who do what you do. That's the test. Okay, because if you're just one of many, you've missed the point. It may be a problem that you've identified, which is correct, but you haven't gone to the next step and defined exactly how you are solving the problem in a way that nobody else does. So you understand, it's more than just a fine point on it. It's more than just wordsmithing. It's, yeah, you got the problem, but what I really want to know is how you are going to uniquely solve the problem in a way that nobody else does. How are you going to leave these strata people who want lawn care? How are you going to leave them breathless when you show up? Okay. And when I say breathless, I said nobody else can take their breath away, but you can. And that's like the objective of the game planning process, is to actually create that unique solution. So that would be the only thing I would add.
Yeah. So thank you for sharpening that up. It's not just about identifying what is the problem that you can position yourself to solve. What you sharpened up there is it's about how you solve that problem in a unique way, where you're the only one that solves a problem that way, is how you sharpen that up for me.
Boom. You got it. Nicely said. Nicely said.
This episode is being brought to you by IOI Ventures. We all know that digital marketing is vital to our company's growth. Unfortunately, many of us entrepreneurs don't know where to start. We simply feel overwhelmed by acronyms like CTA, CRM, and GA. It's time for all of us to stop feeling stuck, because our partners at IOI Ventures have the experience and track record to get us moving in the right direction. Want to learn more? Go to ioiventures.com/EU and sign up for your free 30-minute consultation. I read through your website, you talk about, in order to grow your business from 0 to $1 billion, it's not just one move you got to make. It's a number of deliberate moves. Well, we spent a good amount of time talking about one move, in my opinion, which is have your strategic game plan together with this only statement. So we got that. And without diving deeper into them, could you list off or just rattle off like 4 or 5 other moves that need to be made? And we'll choose which one we want to go into, but just rattle down a few more.
Okay. Every move that we made was related to execution.
Okay.
Okay. So this was not an intellectual exercise, right?
Okay.
This was a right brain exercise. So we came up with these silly little gimmicks or tactics, if you want to call them. One was cleanse the inside.
Okay.
Kill dumb rules. Cut the crap. Leadership by serving around. Line of sight leadership. Fingerprint leadership. And hiring for goosebumps would be some examples of the tactics that we used, all with the end purpose of, now that we've got the strategic game plan, we need to figure out how we're going to execute that puppy. Because at the end of the day, if you can't degenerate the ideas into crude deeds, you got nothing. I don't like talking about strategic plans on paper. I don't like talking about the intellectual wisdom driving the illusionary goal of perfection when it comes to planning. Because the reality is, the people that talk that way have never run a business, right? They're operating out of a textbook. And so that's another one. I'd say, put the textbook down, guys. Put it down, okay? Because it's not going to help you. It got you this far. And if you really believe what got you here is going to get you to where you need to get to, you're going to be spending a lot of money and achieving nothing in results.
Okay, so let me pull a Rich here, and I'm going to recap everything you just said, because I write a little bit faster than him. No, I'm kidding. I didn't catch them all. That's why I want to recap. So it was cleanse what?
The inside.
Cleanse the inside. Okay, and then I got kill
dumb rules.
Dumb rules. And then I got cut the crap. Lead servantly.
Leadership by serving around.
By serving around. Okay. Line of sight leadership.
Line of sight leadership.
Hire for goosebumps.
Hire for goosebumps. Yep.
Textbook down. And then I wrote one down that you didn't say, but I caught that I thought was interesting, was unsales. Is that one?
That's one that you've got on one of my blogs. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The role of unsales, right?
Okay.
Because I don't believe that salespeople are needed.
Okay. So Rich, let's just have a quick little sidebar here. If you had to pick one and I had to pick one for the rest of this conversation to dive a little bit deeper into, what would be the one you would pick?
I would pick cleanse the inside.
Right answer. And the reason it's the right answer is because...
Wait, Roy, hold on. You didn't even hear my answer yet.
No, John, we're done.
Yeah, John, if you don't pick that one, he's going to declare wrong answer.
Wait, hold on. Wait, that you have to cut the crap, Roy. Okay, that's not line of sight leadership.
Okay, I can easily incorporate cut the crap into cleanse the inside.
All right, let's do it.
I was actually being cute with you because it is actually a component look at the cleanse the inside notion says, how can I execute the plan better? How can I do a better job of it? My conclusion was the inside of the machine has got way too much friction generally to allow me to effectively deliver results, right? And if I can reduce the friction, or put it another way, increase the viscosity of the machine, then I will get outcomes far more effectively than I could today. So that leads me to say, what are the main friction points in the machine, right? What are the points that are clogging up viscosity and preventing it from happening? And so one of the things that I landed on was this notion of dumb rules as one notion, right? A dumb rule is a rule that makes absolutely no sense to a customer. And most organizations would say, oh my goodness, we don't have any of those. And of course, they're lying through their frickin' teeth because, yeah, every organization has rules and policies and procedures that customers hate, right? They were created probably years ago by somebody in internal audit, and they just create a life of themselves. And frontline people are constantly in the say no position. Okay, that was another one I didn't mention. It's called the say yes culture. I mean, if you really want to be customer focused, you can't be saying no to them all the time because you got stupid rules that they really don't want to transact with you on. These dumb rules are disablers. Okay, they don't enable the transaction, they disable it. And so what occurred to me is I got to seek out and I got to kill all these things. Okay, because first of all, my front line hate saying no. And if I could get them saying yes by having a rule system that customers really liked working with us on, wow, just think what's going to happen. Okay, I tell you what's going to happen. Revenues are going north because we won't be saying no, we'll be saying yes. So I created this kill dumb rules thing. And in a way, it's an angle of crap. Okay, John, that's a huge bucket of crap up there called
Absolutely.
rules that do nothing but piss people off. Okay. And so I created this program called Killing Dumb Rules. I'd show up in the workplace with a white t-shirt with dumb rules in red and a big black X through there. Here's the president of the company walking through. We had dumb rules committees. We had dumb rules competitions. We had dumb rules celebrations. Okay, so the whole idea was to make fun of this notion and laugh at ourselves and fix it. And of course, frontline people loved it because all we had to do is ask them what the dumbest 3 rules are in customer service, for example, and they would be out with it right away. And of course, they've been telling us for years, it's just that as leaders, we didn't listen. Yeah. And so here's an example of actually listening and doing. So what happened was, of course, that like you're not going to get rid of 100% of them. Okay, some rules exist, notwithstanding the fact that they annoy customers because you got legal and regulatory issues going on. But what if we could eliminate 25% of the stupidity going on inside the machine? What if we could do that? Wow. What that does is that just opens up this huge beam of light, right, inside the machine and allows it to function a lot better. And by the way, employee engagement went through the roof. Okay, like employees, they just love this. You talk about a little thing that grabbed their heart and dragged them into this journey. That was one of the critical ones. And it was a silly little thing. In retrospect, it was a little more strategic in my head, but representing it, it was fun. And it was part of the cut the crap. The other part of the cut the crap was really involved in bureaucracy. Yeah. Okay, and figuring out a way to re-engineer what we did. And in fact, I had a customer panel, okay, that I would use to actually help me with the crap. Like, where do you see bureaucracy? And I had to coach them to get them to answer the question because it's not an obvious one. They thought it was a tough question. And we weeded out a lot of bureaucratic issues that we had that, again, increased the efficiency of the machine, got rid of friction, improved viscosity, service experience went up, revenues went up. Revenues went up because at the end of the day, I did not do this to be cool. I did it because I had to get revenues going north. For those of you that think killing dumb rules is a cool idea and you need to go find a cool idea, no, you don't. You need to figure out those critical, focused things that are going to drive revenue. And typically they're all operational, guys. This is not an intellectual exercise we're dealing with here when you're trying to grease the skids to improve performance. It's all in the trenches, getting dirty, working with people day in and day out and helping them do the job that they know they need to do, if only we would listen as leaders. And that's part of the leadership by serving around piece, by the way. It's like walking around saying, hey, how can I help? How can I help?
See how they all fit together, for sure.
Yeah.
Roy, sounds like you were using your own formula when you came up with kill dumb rules. What I mean by that is, I bet that's what the people in the company craved. That's what the people in a company were talking about behind leadership's back, is how dumb some rules are, how constricting some rules are, how they can't do the right thing with these dumb rules around. They were craving to get rid of dumb rules. And you just played right into that language and said, what are all the dumb rules? We're ready to lead around. We're ready to listen. We want to empower you to be able to do what you need to do and get rid of those dumb rules you've been talking about.
Absolutely.
It was an only statement.
Yeah. Well, it's true. If you look around, there's nobody else out there that talks about this stuff but me.
No.
Seriously. And that's not an ego thing. It's reality. And you asked me earlier, why am I doing this? That's why I'm doing it, because nobody else is talking about the simple things that improve performance of a business. And we need to get leaders to think this way, but they're not. They're up in the boardroom spending time with the CEO and right in the chairman of the board. You have no idea how much trouble I got into, because I spent 60% of my time doing what? Dealing with frontline people and the people who actually were critical to executing our strategy. And so when my boss said to me, Roy, I noticed you canceled a meeting. I said, yeah, do you want me to tell you why, Brian? And I told him why. And I said, how's revenue going? Revenue's going through the roof. So I said, okay, I'm sure you will understand what I was doing and why it was more important than a 15-minute meeting with one of the board members. I'll pick this up at night somewhere, okay?
So
but you're absolutely
Roy,
right.
You've got your book, Be Different or Be Dead, that people can get access to, I'm sure, on your website and on Amazon. Do you have other tools that are on your website or somewhere that someone can say, hey, I want a little bit more Roy? Maybe I'm not quite ready to call him in terms of as a consultant, but I'd like to get into a little bit more of that, see where I get stuck, and then give Roy a call. Is there anything else that you have as an appetizer to get into this?
Yeah, sure. If you check out the blogs that I've got, okay, there's tons of content on everything that we have been discussing in the last little while. Okay, so if you just go onto the blog and you do a search around a topic like dumb rules, you'll find all sorts of articles that I've written on that. And so there's plenty there. But at the end of the day, I'm really happy as well just to have a conversation with people. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. As a result of these kind of conversations, I have people emailing me at my request with their draft only statement saying, hey, Roy, this is who I am and this is what I do. And this is my draft only. What do you think? Oh my God, I just feel like a drink after that. It's so much fun. How actually being able to, first of all, two things. First of all, that people are interested enough and they actually see some value in it, which does my heart good. And actually to be able to help, that really works. And yeah, there's all of that there. Take advantage of it.
Great. Where can your blogs be found? What's the website?
Yes, bedifferentorbedead.com.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to say is part of that is like my latest book, Audacious Ways That Took a Startup to $1 billion, is actually the 7th. So the Be Different or Be Dead book series is actually a series of 7 books that I started writing in 2009. And so they address Be Different or Be Dead in various ways, right? So there's a piece on leadership, there's a piece on career development, there's a piece on execute first, plan second, which is a fun ebook that people go, what? And I said, yeah, execute first, plan second, right? It's just my way of saying focus on execution. Get over yourself. It's not about your wisdom, your intellectual prowess in terms of your destination. It ain't about that. It's about what are the things you're going to actually do to move the yardsticks forward. So there's all that as well. And as I say, gmail.com, roy.osing@gmail.com. I'm there for you.
Thank you, Roy. Really appreciate you being on today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Stay tuned as John and Rich unpack today's conversation.
Rich, I'm about to buy you the book, Execute First, plan second. Would you like to receive that as a gift?
I would. I wrote that down also. That's the essence of being an entrepreneur that you and I summarize so often as ready, fire, aim. Is as an entrepreneur, you have to go out and do something. Know that that first shot is not going to hit the bullseye, and then aim based on the miss to get closer to the bullseye. I will tell you, since we've been doing this podcast, I've been doing more and more of that, to the point that the people who have just met me over the last few years might not even know how much of a perfectionist I was, because I know 85% is good enough, and we'll figure it out from there. So that book is right in line with things I've been trying to practice.
Love it. So we talked a lot about this only statement. And as I sit here and reflect, what I loved about where we ended up is we asked him, okay, what are all these other things within the company that you think they should be doing? And he came up with like 10 more only statements. And what I mean by that is I had never heard of any of these statements before. Hire for goosebumps and kill the dumb rules mantra within your business. And what I love about Roy is really the creativity really coming through, and the energy he creates about it. It's not just a kill the dumb rules thing. He creates a committee around it, contests around it, gets everybody involved in it,
celebrates it.
I just love the energy that he puts behind what he comes up with. So that it goes deep throughout the entire organization. And again, I want to just hit kill the dumb rules piece. He talked a lot about it from the customer front, kill the dumb rules with the customer. But then he started talking about the bureaucracy. And what happens as a company grows, you put in more and more red tape, they call it, right? You put in more and more, okay, in order to do this, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to do this. When do entrepreneurs look back at their business and go, we're going to have a kill the dumb rules here? Let's go through the entire organization, get these little focus groups, and just kill all the dumb crap that consumes a lot of time and drives everybody crazy. I think it's a great exercise that I'd love to do with our business.
Have you ever seen those blog posts, or sometimes there's a of the day law where a law was originated? And they're like literally dumb laws. I can't even think of one even as an example. Have you ever seen anything like that? You know what I'm even talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about with the blog post, but I certainly know that rules get set because something happens, someone puts in a rule, and then you look back on it, and you're like, what the heck was this?
And literally laws. The law book is ridiculously thick. Can you imagine if our legislators had to kill the dumb laws? Wouldn't that be amazing? And then they celebrated it. And then they had committees. And then they had competitions around killing dumb laws. Gosh, I think that's something maybe you and I should go influence, John. You up for running for office?
Yeah, I have to be the VP though, because I'm not American. But listen, I think, Rich, to your point, there's been a lot of conversation about tax reform. You look at the tax code book, right? It's the same thing. It's just like your law book. It's this thick, right? It's all full of dumb tax rules that make stuff so complicated. Listen, don't get me on my high horse here. We have a company that operates in every state in America, okay? If you have a company that's operating in every state in America and you have to deal with every state's sales tax office, employment withholding office, unemployment insurance office, and you call all of those offices or even go to their websites that were built in 1985 and try and get anything done, you have to actually fax them letters to actually get it. Like, it's archaic, the dumb systems and rules that exist in our society. So if they exist in our society, they surely exist in your business.
No doubt. I love the be noticed in a way people care about. And then the tactic or the access point that he used was figure out what are the problems that people are having, and then how can you solve that problem in a way no one else does. And as I said, when we were with him, he really sharpened that up for me, that it wasn't just solve the problem. Solve the problem is lots of companies think of, hey, what are the problems that consumers are having? And how do we solve that problem? He goes the extra mile. How do you solve that problem in a way nobody else does, that makes you stand out, that makes you be noticed in a way that people care about? I think that combination is just gold.
Yeah. There's a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. That's been mentioned a couple of times, I think, throughout our podcasts. And the concept is a red ocean is I'm a landscaper. Yeah, everybody else is a landscaper and everybody else charges $85 to do your lawn every week or whatever it may be, right? You're a commoditized product, right? It's not special. But when you go find a blue ocean, like he did in the example he gave with the landscaping company, which is no, we're going to help develop properties. Your lens kind of goes, whoop, you have a much wider view of things, and how you're going to do that is a lot different. And so that part I really love. I guess what the part that I get concerned about is I've seen this happen before. And if you don't bring the Roy energy to the execution of it, it's a failed exercise. To go to a company, go, no, let's just keep talking about how we're different. And they wordsmith a bunch of words to put together to go, we are going to provide this unique experience for homeowners and they do nothing to execute upon it. I've seen that like 9 times out of 10. The execution is really the meat behind it. Once you really identify what that is, and that's why I love some of the principles he had for execution, you really got to put the meat and substance behind it and follow through on, okay, this is our why. This is who our only statement is. This is what we're doing. How are we going to prove it? What are the KPIs that are going to prove it? And you put all the energy behind it. That's really where you prosper. That's really where you break out.
Well, I think some of that speaks to his third question on how do you intend to compete and win is part of the execution. And then he specifically referenced these 24, 30-day periods. Do you remember back in the day where it was probably 25 years ago, where we were taught a 90-day madman cycle, where you would go crazy for 90 days and just work your tail off. And then we were taught to have 4 90-day madman cycles in a row, and that comprised a year. I totally thought of that with this, where you break down a 2-year plan into these 30-day chunks. And he specifically says, you can't predict the outcomes. He really is a believer in this of go get the experience, go do, and then go ahead and replan. I just thought that was a really good piece that he spoke to on the execution part of it, to your point.
It was the PELA. Plan, execute, learn, adjust. Plan, execute, learn, adjust. Plan, execute, right? Do that consecutively. Just don't stop. Don't just plan and then hope it happens. Don't just plan and execute and never learn. Like, they all have to fit. And then don't forget to adjust. You have to keep adjusting the plane to the point you made earlier to get to your destination. So plan, execute, learn, adjust is a big component, but don't just plan this generic plan. Plan your only statement.